it's funny because we had Vocab scheduled for a different show.
Yep.
He came in at last minute and then that got canceled. So we're just gonna have a fun show today.
That's Calvinism.
That's Calvinism. Speaking of Calvinism,
what?
You have several Calvinistic topics you want to talk about.
You want to hear about a party, guys?
Yes.
I'm here to talk about this picture right here.
Oh, I haven't seen that yet. Let me see it.
You haven't seen this picture yet?
Who's that Muslim John Calvin?
That looks like a terrorist.
That's me.
Muslim.
In my Calvin cosplay. So recently, I gathered all the Roosevelt youth up at our church.
First off, I have to ask you a question. Why is Calvin nailing theses to the door?
Everyone at the party got a shot at the door, so we all each took turns nailing the 95 Thesis to the door.
Like pin the tail on the donkey. It's like
it was more of like a photo booth type of thing. You know,
remember
you were here. No, it wasn't a game. It was a way to remember that you were there. But what was awesome is one gal came as the 95 Thesis, like had a giant poster board strapped, to her neck with a string or whatever, and then another guy came and he had the bald monk cap and everything called a tonsure, and so they took a picture of him with a nail like right around her like neck area, about to nail it in because she was the 95 Thesis. So it sounds a bit perverse as I describe it, but it's pretty awesome because there's a picture of Martin Luther nailing the human 95 Thesis to the wall.
We need you on just to talk about your parties more often.
Did you have a Pope pinata?
No, but the funny thing is, you said that's actually in the works next year. And also,
a Pope pinata's in the works? Oh, okay.
And also, we're gonna rent a mechanical bull. And then you're going to see how long people can ride the papal bull. Because the papal bull is when the Pope would send out these decrees in Latin, and they would say these supposedly important things, and it was a big deal whenever a papal bull went out. Martin Luther received a papal bull, and it basically said, stop preaching this heresy, Luther. Recant the 95 Thesis, or at least the majority of them, and if you don't, you will be excommunicated from the Universal Church. So Martin Luther, of course, went outside of the gates of Wittenberg, Germany. It was a big deal. He burnt the papal bull. And that's not just a way to kind of put a finger in the eye of the Pope, although that can be fun from time to time. It was also a way to essentially affirm sola scriptura, which is on your shirt right now, Marcus, because he's saying
missionaware.com.
It ain't the Pope's authority that we roll by. It's authority found in the pages of Scripture, and the Pope is violating that, so I can go ahead and burn this because it's worthless. And he also burned some other documents from the Roman Catholic Church. Some of the peasants got in on the action. It was a whole fun burning contest. So guess what we did at the end of our Reformation Day party? I printed out the very first page of the papal bull that the Pope actually sent to Martin Luther and put it on this antique style printing paper you can buy. So dude, it looked like a real papal bull, and every kid, boom, boom, we got to burn them all up because we had a bonfire in the back. So it was a real party, man.
Wow, a bunch of pyros.
Dude, Vocab, how come I wasn't invited, man?
Mainly because you go to Apologia.
It was when we had church. You know what?
We were having church too, my friend.
Sounds like it. We have no more Catholic listeners.
Yeah. I don't think we had any to begin with. You should, next year you should do it at someone's house that has a pool, and then you could have a swim the Tiber competition.
So they did have a pool there, and I thought about that, but I also thought about another one, which is they have a diving board, which has a spring. And I want to play this game where when one person throws a coin into a coffer, the person on the diving board has to bounce and jump into the water, because whenever a coin in the coffer rings, another soul from purgatory springs. That's what John Tetzel, who was a Dominican monk, went around the German countryside preaching this to the peasants, telling them that if they would pay a certain amount of money, the Pope would give them basically a limited kind of discount special offer to be able to get their relatives who are suffering in purgatory out. And the Catholic Catholics did at that time teach that purgatory, first of all, was a real place, that you really did experience temporal punishment. So actually minutes were passing by. There was actually sustained awareness you were having. And the ironic thing is, guess who purgatory is for? Only for people on the way to heaven, according to Catholic doctrine. Actually, if you're going straight to hell or whatever, you don't even get to stop by purgatory. You just go get to the bad stuff.
To hell.
The idea of purgatory is essentially purging out the remaining sin before you can jump in Jesus' presence. Which again, what's that do? Totally destroys Solus Christus. I was pointing to the shirt. That's for you guys. That was for you guys.
I don't know what you're about to say.
It takes away Solus Christus because no longer Jesus is Christ's sacrifice sufficient, because you have this extra thing that you actually need to do. So we did a little game where we did throw a coin into the hole, and then after that you had to jump on a trampoline, like spring out of purgatory. And we also did this thing called a Bible smuggling relay, where you had to put a bunch of Bibles in your pants and then see who could get there faster, because during that time, it was illegal to translate the Bible into the vulgar vernacular of the common people. So we did this game where, just like the Reformers, when the Reformation started off, they were translating and publishing Bibles left and right, and they took them in other countries. Sometimes they would get killed doing so.
You
so we
didn't
did
kill
a
anybody,
Bible smuggling relay. No, but next time I would like to do the game where, as you're trying to do your Bible smuggling relay, there's like guys in Cardinals jerseys, but it'll be Arizona Cardinals jerseys. Get it? Kind of like a pun, like a play on words, because a Cardinal's a Catholic position, and they'll be like trying to block them as they're doing the Bible smuggling relay to get to the other side.
That's incredible.
We also did, you guys know.
I have nothing to add to this conversation.
You know what the Diet of Worms is?
The Diet of Worms.
The Diet of Worms. That's where Martin Luther stood before. That's where you eat a lot of worms.
Well,
kind of. Hold up, I'll get there. It's where Martin Luther had to stand before a bunch of big shots of the day, basically German princes and the Holy Roman Empire, Emperor, so-called, all of that kind of stuff, And he had to give an account for his writings, and they kept on saying, recant! And, he wouldn't recant, which means to take back what you had written. And that's where he gave the famous, I can do no other unless I'm convinced by scripture, plain reason. My conscience is held captive to the word of God. Here I stand, I can do no other, so help me God. Boom! Well, that's the Diet of Worms where that happened, because diet is a Latin word that means imperial meeting. Worms was the name of the German city where this was held. So we did a Diet of Worms where we ate chocolate pudding, kind of like dirt, and then put a bunch of gummy worms in it. And the kids had to put their face in it and dig out as many worms as they could in a minute and a half. And you got like 10,000 points for each worm. So it was the Diet of Worms. But the thing is, before we play every game, we would explain to them what it was. So the reason why I want to talk about how to throw a Reformation Day party is to show people, number one, it can be fun. Number one, it can be all ages, because we had high schoolers, a lot of, I think, and we had some adults there too. Number three, you should do it because 2017 marks the 500-year anniversary of when Martin Luther first nailed his 95 Thesis on the chapel door there in Wittenberg. 2017, 500 years, because the first happened October 31st, 1517. So we need to get into this. You know what I'm saying? You got 2 years to get ready to, at your church, throw the biggest Reformation Day party ever.
We're going to outdo you.
We do for Reformation Day.
Apologia's 2017 Reformation Day party is going to be bigger party.
If that happens, then I will have achieved my mission on today's show. Because I want more people to do this kind of thing. And as an experienced Reformation Day party thrower, I can give you some of my promo materials, the flyers we used. I got these Luther masks where if someone doesn't come in the costume of the era, which, by the way, we made the kids do, and then we had a costume contest, you can give them these Luther masks, and so everyone has one on. And we did this costume contest. Guess what the number one prize was? You will never believe this. Playmobil.
Reformation Day Bible.
That's a good. Actually, second place was a Bible.
Study Bible.
That's a good gift for next year. But second place was a Bible, not a Reformation Study Bible. That's a really good idea, though. First place,
Presbyterian Bible, though.
You guys know Playmobil? They kind of are like Legos or like Creos.
Yeah, my daughter loves those.
There's a Martin Luther Playmobil.
Are you serious?
That the company actually made. And they made it earlier this year.
That's
and according
incredible.
to Business Week, I think is where I found the article, it's one of their best sellers of all time. And you can actually put Martin Luther together. And then it has a little quill pen, bro. And with his German New Testament.
I'm looking at it.
Amazing.
Look at that. Look at that. Look, it's right there.
It's a real thing.
That is incredible.
That's not a customization. That's not a fan thing. That's not some crazy Lutheran. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's a real thing a real company made. And on the box, it got the little logo for 2017, 500 years of reforming. It is sick. It is ill. Man, there's so many things you could do. Check this out. What about costumes that people come in that are costume mashups? Next year, some people are going to like this, some people are going to hate on it, but there's mashups. And the reason why I was going to say that is, let's say you're kind of old school and you like Luther Vandross. You know, the R&B singer? What about coming as Martin Luther Vandross? What about if you're kind of a skinny, kind of pretty dude?
What about John Calvin Johnson?
No. What about you come as a model without a shirt on and Calvin Klein jeans and you're Jean Calvin Klein? And you have a beard with the pretty boy hair? There's so many ideas of how to mash this up. I'm telling you, you could come as the Chicago Bulls, but instead of like Chicago Bulls, like Papal Bulls all over your stuff. There's so many ideas. What about someone comes dressed as the number 9, and the next person next to them comes as the number 5? See, 95 thesis. Oh, what about for dessert? Because you have to have German food and Reformation-oriented themed food. Next year, guess what our dessert's going to be? 95 Reese's. There's so many ideas. And
why haven't people done this before?
That's what I'm saying. Now, some of these ideas, I will tell you, I found
I've never seen you so excited about anything
I found
ever.
on homeschooling websites.
Oh, yeah. True.
And like Lutheran websites. About half the ideas I'm saying I found. The other half are truly fresh creations, or some are moderated or modified from their ideas. And that's just the beginning of the ideas. There's so many more ideas I could tell you. For example, you could carve pumpkins with John. There's actually a sketch cut out where you can do John Calvin and Martin Luther's faces. The sketch is already online. Just go Google PDF for it.
Look what's happening right now.
He's buying it.
I'm buying it on Amazon.
What? The Luther thing?
The Playmobil. Yeah, that's got to be in our studio. It's like $13.
13?
Yeah.
Shoot.
It's already bought.
There goes somebody's tithe and offering.
Hey, you know what? Your party was missing something very important though. The Reformation Day, Oktoberfest beer.
It was for the youth, so we didn't want to turn it. I'm just saying,
you want to be authentic.
Illegal.
It needs to include.
And no one was baptized, right? No babies were baptized.
No babies were harmed in the making of this party.
Oh, only kind of authentic.
All right, next year, since there is a pool there, we'll throw all the children into the pool.
Sounds good to me, man. That'll work. I don't care how you get them wet.
Those
just
that
get them
don't
wet.
sink to the
Even
bottom
if we dip them,
are the elect infants.
Get them wet. Get them wet.
All right.
Hey, can you wrap us out, or you need some prep?
Well, that beat is not.
It's not
ideal.
It's not gonna do it.
Can you bring me back a beat when we come back from break? That's like more of a hip hop beat than that one, and we'll do it. All right, cool.
Apologia Radio. We'll be back in 30 seconds.
Yeah. Solar Cry. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Martin Luther rap. Peter Piper picked a leper. Yeah. A man without a sweater said to give some cheddar to the priest to make it better. Your Aunt Marguerite is stuck in purgatory. Told a tale and another false story. People couldn't read, but they heard the oratory. Indulging sins like committing perjury. Indulgences get away scot-free, but that's blasphemy and a false prophecy. Wycliffe and Huss, now they coming after me. An army of priests push the death penalty. Rome survives off a false forgery. October 31, 1517, Wittenberg door in a chapel, Germany. Reform the church, not divided in pieces. Please discuss my 95 thesis. Why won't the Pope trust the words of Jesus? No dialogue, I'm tried to it, Lord. A rope and a lighter and a fire like a hog. Thank God the King, he was saving me. He was taking me, placing me in a place to be. Study Greek and peace, translating in a tree. Don't speak Latin, we're German, homie. We can now have the word of God for all to see. Just wait until they read Romans 6:23. My name is Martin Luther and the gospel is free.
Wow.
So that's Martin Luther rapping.
That's hard.
Wow.
That's hard.
I feel like that's exactly what he would do.
Yeah.
That's his style, everything.
See, I said Peter Piper picked a leper. That's a reference to the Pope. because they call him like he sits in the chair of Peter. A man without a sweater is saying like the poor dudes said to give some cheddar to the priest to make it better. You know all about that. Aunt Marguerite stuck in purgatory. Tetzel told a tale in another false story. That's that dude I talked about earlier, you know, the coin in the coffer guy.
Okay.
People couldn't read, but they heard the oratory, so they had to trust the priest's interpretation of Scripture. Indulge in sins like committing perjury. Indulgences get away scot-free because you basically pay your sin, be covered up. But that's blasphemy and a false prophecy. Wycliffe and Huss, now they coming after me. That's Martin Luther because they came after those dudes before him. An army of priests pushed the death penalty, but Rome survives off a false forgery. October 31, 1517, Wittenberg door in the chapel, Germany. Reform the church, not divided in pieces. Please discuss my 95 thesis.
That was the
Why
best part.
won't the Pope trust the words of Jesus?
Wow.
And the words of Ivy Connolly. Sometimes you gotta bogart to go hard.
Yeah,
Man.
That was awesome, dude.
Yeah.
Only on Apologia Radio.
Yeah, that's right.
You don't even get that on Urban Theologian because the show's not long enough.
No, that's true.
We've already done this rap on our show.
Oh.
It must have been was the whole show.
It was a lot better. I had a couple mess ups this time. On our show, I didn't have any mess ups. It was flawless. Kind of like our show compared to yours. Oh!
No, we know that ain't true.
Oh, this is your last time on the show, Vocab. What do you want to say to people?
I'm like, hey, Ramon, what do you think of that? Huh? Oh, I was just answering church email. I didn't see what you were saying. What were we talking about? Do we have a guest on? Are we talking about what? That happens more than you care to know.
Oh, I believe it. He was like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm in the coalition of the gospel.
Yeah, or Pastor Bob.
You gotta wake him up.
What do you think, Bob? Well, I'm speechless. Okay. That's what I got to work with all the time.
Yeah. I've been on the show with them.
Yeah.
I know how they roll.
Yeah.
So you just did a debate, huh?
Yeah, so
2 debates.
I just debated twice in one day a Muslim apologist named Shadid Lewis. And Marcus was there. He did the video.
Yep.
And the Woodpeckers.
And the Woodpeckers were there. Yep.
Yeah.
They sure were.
So tell us about it.
Well, I feel like Shadid is a cool guy, and I like how our styles mesh, you know, kind of casual but intense, kind of streetish but moderately academic. That was my opinion of the vibe of it.
Yeah.
And dude was mad respectful, mad chill, clear, and I feel like he's prepared, generally speaking, as far as what a Muslim apologist can be prepared to say, meaning he's really prepared, he's really clear, he's really good in what he does, but ultimately, of course, he's still defending a false faith. So that's his main weakness. It's not any personal weakness that, in my opinion, he has.
He was from Hampton, Virginia, wasn't he?
Yeah.
I didn't even know that. When I was editing the debate, you said that, and I picked up on it. That's where I'm from.
Oh, you guys should have.
I know, man.
He used to be president of one of the mosques there,
That's
actually.
what I heard, yeah.
He must be a lover then. Because Virginia's for lovers.
Oh, I never knew that. Well, he's born in Brooklyn, so on the way, when I picked him up from the airport, because I actually picked him up, we talked about old school hip-hop. You know, he likes Big Daddy Kane, yada, yada.
He's a comic book fan, too, right?
He knows some about that. He actually teaches ninjutsu, so he got these videos online of him, like, doing takedowns and stuff. So, just an interesting dude all around, man. And
So you debate him on the Muslim apologetics, and then we get him and Jeff just to go at it physically.
That's a great idea. That's a great idea, actually. I'd like to see. Yeah, totally. That's interesting, actually.
Yeah.
So we did 2 debates.
So you can have the intellectual fight and the physical fight all at once and see who wins.
Right. Well, I had to ask Jeff about it. I heard he wasn't here because he's sick, which seems to happen a lot. So I don't know if he's up to the task these days. He's like the old sick, you know. Show you the sick style. But we've got 2 debates in a row. The audio is online. The video is going to be popping up pretty soon. Is the Quran trustworthy? And is the New Testament trustworthy? So we each had to defend our respective positions. And the beautiful thing about the debate is it had 2 sections where there was 10-minute cross-examinations. So there's like 20 minutes total of cross-ex back and forth. And most people, of course, like those spots the best.
Yeah.
So I think it lent itself to a really engaging educational debate overall. That's my view of it. I mean,
the second one you were on fire, though. Y'all are about to like knock each other's heads off.
Well, we were definitely animated, but if you watch him, he's pretty cool and calm. You know, I never felt like he was... I mean, if anyone was more like, hey, it was probably me more than him.
It was fun.
Yeah, I agree.
We should talk about your Star Wars analogy.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Well, it's only like this one line.
It's the one line that's all that matters. It's the I'll be back. It's I can't handle the truth. That's all you need is that one line.
Well, so we were talking about, is the Quran truly a continuation of preceding revelation? Now, the Muslim claims previous revelation has been abrogated. That's their technical word for wiped away by the Quran's greater and final authority. One time I heard a Muslim say to me, when the new iPhone drops, people go get it, right? You want the latest and the greatest, the most up-to-date. That's the Quran. And the Old New Testament are prior to that. They're the earlier generation. But in addition to that, they also charge, of course, the text of the documents is being corrupted by false theology and other things like that. And so
it's like an iPhone with a virus.
Yeah, so it's an older iPhone and with a virus. But then my point and part of this discussion we're having is that if you actually read the Quran and the theological motifs and claims that arise from it, it actually is not a continuation of any of the covenant documents, either old or new, for a multiplicity of reasons. It's discussion on the nature of God, even what the prophets are, what they do, how they behave, that type of thing. It's doctrine, it's of sin, of man, it's anthropology. It's understanding of what we do with sin. So there was really no gospel. It's actually somewhat similar to sort of modern day Judaism, in the sense of, you ask for repentance, you try harder, God understands, it's all good, he's gracious so he can forgive. But there's actually no objective basis for why you're being forgiven. So all these things make it out of step. In fact, really, it's like a retrogression. But certainly, there's some awareness of the prior revelation. The Quran talks about the Torah, which is the first 5 books of Old Testament, talks about the Psalms, talks about the Injil, which we understand as the Gospels. So there's some awareness. Jesus is in there. A number of the prophets and characters from the Old and New Testaments, especially the Old, are name dropped in there. The story of Lot and Sodom, the story of Noah. So there's some general awareness of those. So it has some continuity in that kind of a sense. Yeah. And of course, it's chronologically after. My whole point by saying that is this. The Old Testament's like Star Wars A New Hope. The New Testament is like Star Wars Empire Strikes Back. The Quran thinks it's Return of the Jedi, but it's more akin to Spaceballs.
Beta Schwartz be with you.
And so the point by that is actually to prove something I really believe in kind of a memorable way. The Quran is claiming we're the final installment of the series in line with the prior. My claim is that it's more of a parody. It takes actual bits and pieces, but it comedically misinterprets and really satirizes them in some ways. In fact, the Quran gets the doctrine of the sonship of Jesus all wrong, gets the Trinitarian nature of Jesus all wrong, etc., etc. So it's more like a Spaceballs, which is an 80s movie by Mel Brooks that was a comedic take on the trilogy, but not a true continuation of the series like Return of the Jedi was,
so
Ewoks and all.
So do Muslims think that the Bible are the Star Wars prequels, 1, 2, and 3?
Yeah, so people then wanted to continue the analogy.
Wipe that out of the canon, right?
During the debate, someone said, well, does that make the Book of Mormon like a Phantom Menace? Which is actually possible because, it's inferior quality and it claims to be prior, but actually it comes after. Okay, you could stretch that one out. But the point to show is to kind of give away, and the Muslim shouldn't just be offended by the analogy. They should start to think, is Muhammad truly in line of the path of the prophets? And a key way to know that he's not is all the prophets, A to Z, taught repentance, and they also taught a doctrine of sacrifice, and they believed blood was necessary to wipe away the sin. And that's the key one. If you read Moses, he's laying down Levitical laws. If you read the prophets after, who are telling Israel, you're not living by the law, by the covenant that you signed on to, they're always pointing back to that. But then you get to the New Testament, Jesus comes, fulfills it. Hebrews talks all about that. Muhammad claims to be after in this path of the prophets, but yet there's no atonement, no longer required. God's standards suddenly are lowered. And in fact, they don't even believe Jesus died on the tree. They believe that Allah made it appear as if someone else was up there. By the way, which if that's true, this is a common argument. I didn't invent this, but Allah is responsible for the false religion that is Christianity, because the Christians saw a guy up there. They thought it was Jesus. right? So part of that's Allah's fault, because if he's deceiving people by making them think Jesus is on the cross dying, but he's actually not, well, then Christianity gets started partially because of that, but it was not true. So Allah's kind of at fault for starting Christianity, which according to Islam is a modern-day false religion. So those are some of the things we discussed in the debate, because that last one gets to the character of Muhammad. And part of the point is the ultimate source, if it was Allah as described by the Quran, is insufficient to be reliable, trustworthy, because the character of the ultimate source itself is dubious.
So are you likening Muhammad to yogurt?
Oh, from the Spaceballs trilogy? I don't know. That's right. You know, that's I got to work those other ones out. I don't have all those down quite yet. I made one other analogy during it. I forgot what it was, though. But, yeah, I mean, I want to try to be a local guy that does this more and more.
Yeah.
I think it needs to happen more. The trick is I keep on bumping into atheists everywhere I go, and I love atheists. I like them, whatever. But like when I want to debate Muslims and study, there's an atheist there, and they have a question, and there's an atheist here, and I can't find a Muslim one, and so I end up doing more stuff with atheists, but I would rather be doing more with Muslims, so I'm working it out.
You just got to tag along with Dr. White. You guys can have dual debates.
Well, you know, I wouldn't mind being his junior varsity partner, his Padawan, but he's always somewhere else. You know, he's not, I'm really want to focus kind of on Arizona, Phoenix Central, like really kind of localized stuff. Because I like to debate a guy and afterwards go out to eat with him or something like that. Like, I'm really shooting for that type of stuff.
I noticed that about you. That's one thing I really like is like you seem to be good friends with all the people that you debate and have discussions with.
There's always limitations, and some people genuinely just hate you. They just can't stomach what you believe, but yeah, if a person's willing, we're going to go there and we're going to be cool as long as they're okay with like legitimate disagreements and discussions and friendships. Like I got a friend who's out and out flagrant, claims to be a Christian homosexual guy. It's not a secret what I think, and we have those discussions, but he comes over, he hangs out. Now, his other friends they don't understand how he can do that, right? But I think that's better. I think more of that is good. You know, I don't only want people like me and all that. And I think it's a great thing. If you think about it, which is harder? Witnessing to family or friends you've had a long time, or to a stranger? It's actually easier to a stranger because you're starting off sort of on the right foot. It's hard to be like, Grandma, hey, I changed your diaper, and or your friend, man, I've known you for 20 years. Now you're all Joel Osteen on me, or whatever they would say from there. But that's what's great. If you start a relationship off with a Muslim, with an atheist, whatever, but you're friendly and you're starting with that relationship foot, the nature of it doesn't really have to change. You can grow, get to know each other, but you're boom, 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 witnessing all the way, showing the love of Christ all the way, and it's not like surprise attack. I just think it's beautiful.
It's funny. I just had that conversation with somebody on Tuesday that has had opportunities to speak to like thousands of kids, like to share his faith with thousands of kids.
Right.
But then like his mom's asking him about the gospel, and he's like, I don't know what to tell her.
It's a lot harder.
I know. I'm like, isn't that funny? You can like no problem tell thousands of kids, but when your mom tells you, like, I don't know what to say to her. My mom, man. Yeah.
Yeah. There
Awesome.
you go. Shout out to the atheist that did come to the debate. Forrest did a great job being the moderator, and Spencer did a great job being the timekeeper. So we even had atheists keeping the time and moderating the debate, and I thought they did a good job.
All right.
This is the last time this year, so let me hear you good and loud. All right, Gary. One, two, three. Take me out to the
Hey! You're listening to Apologia Radio.
So we're going to talk about Calvinism in baseball. We happen to know a Calvinist baseball player, and apparently so does Vocab.
Yes.
Well, not personally, but
Not
yeah.
personally.
You just heard of
You have
them.
connections.
I do.
Tell us about it.
Already? All right. Well, the reason why I said this might be cool to talk about, that sounds beautiful in the background, I love it, is because, as some of you know, the World Series just ended. The Kansas City Royals beat the New York Mets. It was a very good series. And in my little digging and my little research, I find this guy who's a second baseman for the Kansas City Royals, and he's a Calvinist.
Did it say that on the website?
No, not on MLB.com, of course. But I still actually don't know entirely how to pronounce his last name, but I think it's Zobrist.
Zobrist, yeah.
Yeah, Ben Zobrist. And so I did a little digging, I found an interview with him on Challies.com. You guys know what Challies.com is?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a famous, like...
You have to know it if you're a Christian.
Yeah, especially if you're Reformed, you know Challies.com, right? And so listen to this. This is the last part of the interview with the second baseman for the World Series champions, Kansas City Royals, Ben Zorbas. He says, what are a few good books you've read recently? What are a few more you're hoping to read? Let me just share you some of from his list. The Saints' Everlasting Rest by Richard Baxter.
Wow.
Same guy who wrote the Reformed
He's
Pastor.
a Puritan.
The Attributes of God by Arthur Pink.
Nice.
Wow.
And I mean, I could go down the list, but then in the books he wants to read, because also says books you like to read, Humility by C.J. Mahaney. I mean, I'm just saying, like, so in his reading list, he's got explicitly, Calvinist Reformed books. Anything by Pink, is like it's a whole nother level. And then it's just pretty cool. So I did a little more digging. I found out he grew up as a son of the pastor, saved at a young age, and just seems to be legitimate all around. Went to Dallas Baptist University, and they asked him in this Challies.com interview, for example, like, how do you stay connected to your local church? Because he's part of a local church during the baseball season. And he mentions, like, I'm part of a men's theology class at our church. I mean, this is a baseball player, right?
Wow.
And he talks about Pastor Byron Yon, which is a hilarious name for a pastor, by the way. Pastor Yon. I try to stay awake during his sermons. But so I looked up Byron Yon, Community Bible Church is the name. And sure enough, in his bio, he specifically talks about being part of the Reformed tradition and all that. So the pastor as well is specifically Calvinistic. Then this is my last leg of my research, guys. The reason why I'm sharing this is because it's beautiful to see somebody who has like a robust theology. From the interviews, it seems like he has a very thoughtful posture about who he is and what he's doing, and really seeing it as something that is to the glory of God. And I think that's nice to see. I mean, we all see the Christian athlete who's like, Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior. We get a quick shout out, point up to heaven after I hit a home run, that kind of thing. Okay. Which, by the way, I think Ben Zorbas does. But I'm just saying, like that kind of shallow athlete version of come speak at my church Christianity that we don't even know if you know what you're talking about. But this dude's got a whole nother level. Not only that, dude's wife is a Christian singer. But Christian pop singers, I mean, they just be saying whatever. I mean, think about them. I'm not going to call out names like Jackie Velasquez, Amy Grant. I mean, you just think about the kind of like shallowness of whatever. I look up this girl's bio. Let me just quote from Ben Zorb's wife bio, Calvinist baseball player extraordinaire. Quote, this is his wife. I want the gospel to saturate what I do. If our lives end with loving ourselves, then we miss the point. We are to be sacrifices, living testimonies that seep gospel out of every pore, so that in every song, every confrontation, every dialogue, every sermon, every testament, we radiate the truth of our acceptance by God because of the righteousness of Christ.
Wow.
This is from her bio on their shared website, thezobrists.com, because they have a book together called Double Play. And she sings, and I just get ready. This last quote, this is just gets to another level. When we see ourselves in light of God and who He is, to claim any earned favor is not only crazy, but it takes away the reason Christ had to come.
Wow.
He came to be the interception between God's justification
There's a football.
and my deprivation. This is his wife's bio. She's saying this. I needed Him, but did not know it. He pulled me out of the depths, kicking and screaming. There was not an ounce of me that desired God. He chose to open my eyes and make me aware of Christ and His glory.
Wow.
And it is in that power that my salvation rests. Because of the gospel, I am made right. Because of the gospel, I am given salvation.
You say that was Spurgeon quote?
Because of the gospel, I can never be let go. This is his wife,
Sounds
Juliana
reformed to me.
Zobris. So I'm just saying, like, it's kind of cool to see people's bios. And half the time, if I look up a player and they act more like a football player than a baseball player, and by that I mean, murdering and beating their wives, I kind of like not really going to feel them no matter how good they are.
Right.
But a lot of these baseball players, they're cool, some of them here and there, but to find a straight-up Calvinist and his wife is repping game like that hard, it got me pretty amped, and I was just cheering for the KC Royals that much more. So I just wanted to share that with you guys.
I know a family like that.
Yeah, I know who wasn't cheering for the KC Royals.
Who's that?
Cy Timbergate.
Why is that?
He was for Toronto Blue Jays.
They lost
but
before
they
that.
lost. They lost to the Mets.
I know.
I mean,
No,
they lost to the Blue Jays
Royals.
prior.
Yeah.
The Royals.
So
They
he
lost
wanted the
Royals,
Mets to win to get back at them.
I would imagine he's a very vengeful man, so.
He's a very vengeful man.
No, the atheists are going to take that on with it.
All the atheists are like, just like his God.
That's great.
Yeah,
I thought you said you met his pastor or something like that.
Well, no. Okay, that's a little bit. So I told my friend this, and this is, I'm not going to name all the names, but this friend was like, oh yeah, do you know Pastor so-and-so, who's a Calvinist pastor actually in the area that I do know well? And I was like, yeah. I was like, that was his pastor prior when he lived in Texas. That was his pastor over it. And so he knows him specifically, said he's a stand-up guy, solid dude. And this pastor I know was like really reformed. And so he got like a plug from a local pastor that I know really well. And so that's his former pastor. So, I mean, it's just kind of cool to see, these things popping up. And that wasn't the only thing like that in this last World Series. I don't know if you heard, but Major League Baseball earlier in the year appointed like a MLB homosexual ambassador to the sport. The idea was to like show the players how to be more, gay friendly and whatever.
Oh, gosh.
And so this caused a big discussion because they asked some of the players what they thought about it, and people knew that the New York Mets second baseman Daniel Murphy, who was also in the World Series recently, was an evangelical Christian.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So they specifically asked him, what do you think about this?
Of course.
And the only quote they got out of it was, I disagree with the gay lifestyle. But I read this full quote by Daniel Murphy, and again, I was shocked. Now, I don't have any proof that Daniel Murphy's a Calvinist, but I was shocked by the level of depth of thought and maturity in the full quote that he gave about, historically, we haven't always done well in this. I can be friends with people, but here's like what God's words are. Like, very just clear and compassionate. They took out this one quote, and then like, there's this New York piece. All these articles came out against him, like all these homosexual fans rooting against him, and I would go down and that craziness going on and like controversy. The Mets don't want him back because of this, yada yada yada. But it's pretty cool to see like him really representing and speaking out what he thought as well. So it's kind of cool to see some of those dudes, especially when they're articulate.
He went free agent recently, didn't he?
Well,
he will
I
be a
just
free
posted
agent.
something on Facebook about that. That they didn't bring him back.
Nah.
Because of that?
That's what some people speculate. So what it was is Daniel Murphy is good, but he's not at that whole nother level. But
so it's like Tim Tebow, right? Like, he's not really that great of a player.
What happened is during the playoffs, dude started playing like Babe Ruth.
He had 7 games in a row. He hit a home run.
Boom, boom, boom. The poor Cubbies, who I know Luke loves, like, he just destroyed them.
Praise God.
He's a White Sox guy.
Oh, good, actually, because I hate Cubs. I didn't want to say that, but I hate the Cubs.
Praise God.
First of all, who takes pride in being a loser? Second of all, they're a large market team with a big budget who still can't put together a winning team. Third of all,
preach to the choir right here.
Hey,
it's the curse of the Billy Goat, man. You can't blame
to the choir here.
Yeah, curse of the Billy Goat. I know some of that. I have a friend on staff with the D-back security, and I said, in the drunk tank, because at Chase Field, there's a drunk tank. When dudes start fighting and acting a fool, they throw them in the drunk tank, and they actually go to jail.
Yeah.
They call it the jail, but it's like a little jail behind the field. Well, I said, who gets the craziest? And he said, first, no question, Boston Red Sox. Whenever they come to town, we have the most people in the drunk tank. And who do you think was second?
Cubs fans.
It's the Cubs fans.
Right.
Like, no question. Like, for sure, it was.
Right.
They were the worst. And so I was. Anyway, so what I'm saying is, don't really like the Cubs, but Daniel Murphy just started hitting home runs left and right, clutch homers nonstop. Then in the World Series, he didn't do as well. And so it's like, what's going to happen to him? But I mean,
it's like Tim Tebow, right? Like, because he was throwing some game-winning passes.
He had game-winning runs because he can't throw the ball.
Oh yeah, okay.
More than 10 yards.
Yeah, that's right. So and then when they didn't bring him back, everybody was like, "Oh man, it's because he's a Christian." But he just wasn't a good player.
Right.
I mean, you got to be. I mean, NFL quarterback. That's a whole nother level. You got to be. You can't be at 75%. You got to be at the 100% game.
So Daniel Murphy's solid. Like, fans love him because he plays real hard, like hustle style ball. Always, he's like kind of a charger.
He also had a couple epic errors
during the World Series. It was so sad, man, because I saw it happen, and I knew that the Royal second baseman, our Calvinist friend, was realizing, hey, that was predestined to happen. But I don't know Daniel's theology, so I don't know how he took it. It was kind of a sad thing to watch it and him kind of become the GOAT. When he had just previously been the hero.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. And, baseball, again, you can make an idol out of it, like any sport, anything.
Right.
Don't want to do that. But I don't like sports, but I do like baseball.
Can you compare Calvinism to baseball?
Well, there's some few key things you could do. For example, you could take the doctrine of total depravity. How would you guys define total depravity?
It's being completely sinful.
unable.
So in every area of our being, sin permeates.
Yes.
Noetic effects of sins are the intellectual assault that sin has on our rational faculties, for example.
Right.
Well, you have some great illustrations of total depravity in baseball. That's one thing you could do. Like you could point to Ty Cobb and talk about Ty Cobb as a great example of total depravity. In the modern era, probably Jose Canseco.
Why would you say Ty Cobb? Like, give some backstory.
Well, okay, so
to that.
specifically,
he was a really bad person.
Ty Cobb, for example, had like features that some people in that day of racism considered black looking. So sometimes they would call him a half in. That was a famous taunt. And one time a fan was jeering him with that. Ty Cobb jumped into the stands and beat the man bloody, put him in a coma, like some serious permanent damage.
Yeah.
Because, first of all, he was offended at the specific slur, but then what he did to the man it was awful. And because he was such a great player, he only got a slap on the wrist. That's an example of the type of man he really was. He sharpened his spikes. They had metal spikes then. He's known to have sharpened his spikes specifically to try to slide into second and third baseman to actually try to injure them permanently and hurt them in a serious way.
Yeah.
That type of stuff that Ty Cobb was known for.
Wow.
Or the Black Sox, that's the Chicago.
Yeah, there we go.
Sorry, Luke.
That's okay.
White Sox team that threw the World Series for money.
Shoeless Joe.
Wow.
Say it ain't so, Joe.
That's why
Yeah.
he's not in the Hall of Fame.
Of course, Pete Rose would be a fantastic example of total depravity. First of all, his hair is totally depraved. His haircut is totally, I don't know if you've seen it. That'd be one aspect. But also, if you read any bios about him, boy. And of course, there's the betting on baseball while managing a team thing that he's kicked out for. And of course, Jose Canseco, I mean, just go on his website, which is, I forget the full title, but it's something steroids.com.
Oh my gosh.
Like, he's all about it should be legal and it's all good. And he talks openly about orgies and stuff in the locker room. The dude is just way out there. And I don't know if you read much about him. He played for the Oakland A's back in the day. Yeah. But like,
he played for the Sox for a little while too.
Yeah, dude, like running his car into his wife's car and all these kind of crazy escapades. I mean, he's another good example of it. Barry Bonds probably is too, all the steroids. Anyways, that's one thing about it. But an Arminian might ask, why would a Calvinist like baseball since the outcome is predetermined? What do you guys think of that question? Two things.
Okay.
We enjoy watching history unfold because all history glorifies God.
Amen.
So even though we have an on-the-field seat, we don't have the grandstand seat, we can't see the whole thing at once, we don't know what's going to happen, right?
Right.
We don't have the Marty McFly playbook from 2015, but
Sports Almanac.
It's enjoyable to watch God's plan unfold in history. Second of all, it's enjoyable to see people image forth God as they do when they play baseball. And so those are two reasons why I think a Calvinist can still like watching baseball.
Wow.
That's awesome.
That's you should have narrated the Ken Burns documentary.
Yeah.
It'd have been probably
baseball. A game of ups and downs. Contrast.
So
pitcher zoom in.
Boxes and diamonds.
Pitcher zoom out.
I remember when we ride the bus for 25 days in a row.
Score. Old time piano player music.
And then a little crack in the back.
Oh my gosh. Jeff's going to listen to this and he's going to be like, I have no idea what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Before we go to break, the last break we were talking, I had to fill out a questionnaire for a couple for adoption. I won't say who or where it came from. But one of the questions was like asking me if the couples were certain positions on a baseball team, what positions would they be? And I'm like, what kind of a question is this? Is it like the closer, the starting pitcher? And what did you say? It was amazing.
A catcher, because I always guard home. Right, you got to go with that one right there.
So with that, we'll see you on the other side. ApologiaRadio.com.
Car keys.
Driving in my car in the middle of May, looking for a girl like a needle in hay. You know it's already in the late 80s. Roll the windows down, but me straight 80s. Ladies in the street while my FM's on, singing sad songs, somebody in dawn. On my way to work, I'm feeling like a jerk.
You sound so young.
Plus I'm wearing tights.
I was.
2003, it says?
Yeah, that's right.
That was 12 years ago.
That was Vocab Malone rapping Lonely Malonely from the Notepad Nomad album, which is what? What'd you say, 12 years?
Yeah.
Yeah, 2003? Yeah, that's right.
So you must have been 12 then?
Basically.
Because you're 24 today, right?
Yeah, basically. You got it. That's crazy to hear that. You know what's up, man? I love hip-hop, but when I hear these guys rapping nowadays, like all the fantastic Christian hip-hop artists, I realize that they don't really need me to return from retirement. So it's good for me just to do worship music, freestyles every now and then, like on Apologia Radio.
Like a Reform Con, maybe?
Yeah, street witness, do some rapping and nerd things, but like the all-out artist thing, I don't think that'll ever, there's not even the need, is what I'm saying.
I cannot wait to see what you dress up as for the Reform Con cosplay
Just
contest.
don't look like a terrorist.
Well, wait, that date, I was going to ask you guys about that. You know,
June
that's
1st to 4th.
Yeah, the challenge with that date is the same weekend as Phoenix Comic-Con.
Is it really?
Yeah. I was
No
wondering,
way, are you serious?
Maybe look at it again. How much of the work have you done? I mean...
That's the only day we could do it.
Well, okay. Then I can be there every day except for the... There's a few days I can't be there. I run panels at Phoenix Comic-Con. But is that bad to say on the air? I'm just saying
it's okay.
They run at the same time.
No, it might encourage more people to come. They might go to Reform.
You can do both.
Phoenix Comic Con one day and then Reform Con the next day.
That's a whole nother level, yeah. But all right. Well, I'll let you guys sort that out.
So he might come to Reform Con dressed as like Cobra Commander.
Yeah,
Calvin Commander.
Calvin Commander.
Just throw your beard on, man.
I'll be like I'm alternating French Cobra Commander thing, like I am Cobra Commander. Je m'appelle Cobra Commando. Something like that. Oh, wait. Oh. Fools, I'm surrounded by fools.
Wow.
You went to France and did some like hip hop evangelism, right?
Yeah, I went to Grenoble, which is where a big university is, so it's kind of an international...
You say Chernobyl?
Grenoble,
Grenoble.
Rhymes with Chernobyl. And they've got a lot...
It's the more healthy version of Chernobyl.
It is healthy, except
you
all
can go there and not die.
Except all the French smoke. Oh my goodness! And that's all they do, bro. Like everywhere, all the time. Anyways, but yeah, and there's a lot of North Africans there, and they tend to be Muslims. A lot of Algerians, for example, and so there's a great opportunity to witness to them in that context, because the French got a lot of commendable things about them, but they are very French, and what I mean is
they make good toast.
Well, they're
and fries.
They're closed off a little bit to other cultures. They kind of
they don't like Americans. I heard
Americans will tend to like, come on, join the party a little bit more. Like, you can make me some money, or we can party together. I don't care what you look like. You have a funny accent. Let's do it. Generally speaking, the French, it's not as much like
That's
that.
How I feel
you know
about
what I'm saying? Yeah. And so these Muslim folks are really kind of ostracized. Even if they're third generation, the French are like, you're not a true Frenchman. They still kind of like,
wow.
And so it's a great thing for the Christians to come into this like really outcast community, show them the love of Christ and get past that. But it's crazy, man. When I was there, I saw how hard it was even for the French evangelicals to actually do that. So there's some real cultural hurdles there with the natives sharing the gospel with each other. And it's also triply hard being an American because the French aren't always crazy about you. Although a lot of the North African youth tend to like be cool a little bit more with Americans because they love hip hop. And that was my end. So we did a lot of rap, partly in French with the lyrics translated and then partly in English.
I remember you played some French hip hop on Backpack Radio. It was really good. I had no idea what the dude was saying, but it was really good.
Yo, man, the French take their art seriously, and people would maybe try to sleep on French hip-hop, but when you actually start to wade through it, there's some legitimately good artists. Like, you don't really have to look that hard. Like, I've listened to some Russian hip-hop. Bro, I'm sorry, man. I'm not trying to, like... it don't sound right, and it's just funny. I mean, I am big Russian bear. I crush you. Imagine rapping like that, right?
Yeah.
Heard some German rap, some Ukrainian hip hop. It just don't work, man. The French, bro, man, they know how to put it down.
It sounds like they're playing it in reverse.
Are you talking about the French hip hop?
The French, because the way they pronounce stuff. Yeah, it sounded like it was in reverse. That's funny.
And they got some nice production, man. So French hip hop's pretty legit. French hip hop culture in general, I give respect to. So, anyways, I was there witnessing to the Muslims with the bridge of Christian hip hop.
Nice,
which is pretty cool. Little mission
awesome.
trip.
So speaking of other cultures, we saw in the news today.
Oh boy,
that in China, some woman that had a baby in China.
That's news, first of all, in China.
Yeah.
A woman had a baby in China. Sorry.
And, I think it was a baby girl, which actually is...
Right.
Don't they kill a lot of baby girls in China, right? Yeah.
You ever seen that documentary?
It's a girl.
Box?
Oh, it's a girl. Yeah.
The 3 most dangerous words in the world. Yeah.
Wow.
And,
good.
But the lady... I just read the article. The lady, had the baby, just gave birth to her, and,
started to eat the baby.
Eat her arm.
Immediately started to eat the baby.
The baby's arm, and they had to
bite pictures of bite marks on the baby's arm.
They had to grab the mom and pry her mouth open and get the arm out, and
which is amazing.
Yeah.
Because if you watch the debate that Cy and Jeff did, Bruce Gleason's opening statement, the very first thing he said was this.
Before we go on, I need to explain what an atheist is. There's a lot of misconceptions of atheists. No, we're not baby eaters.
Now, it's true that atheists do not eat babies because they are made in the image of God and they think it's immoral.
Yeah.
But the entire premise of the debate that was set up from that statement that Jeff set up was, why is it wrong to eat babies?
Right.
And so they would try to act like, well, that's just a crazy question, right? Like nobody eats their babies. And now we have an article from a story that just happened where people
from communist China
who
are most likely atheists.
Yeah, where they actually they're most likely Christians. There's a lot of Christians.
Yeah, I'm just saying, but if you're a communist,
right.
Probably an atheist.
Maybe she just misunderstood the phrase baby food. Sorry. Sorry, it's too soon.
Too soon?
Yeah. Anyway. Yep.
You just totally stumped Marcus.
He totally got me.
He doesn't even know what to say now.
So anyway, don't eat babies, right?
Moral of the story.
Yeah, moral of the story.
Don't eat your baby.
Don't eat your baby. But it's interesting because now that's an actual position that the atheists have to defend now. Is why is it wrong for that lady to try and eat her babies?
Right.
If you watch Babies Are Murdered Here, there's a scene in Babies Are Murdered Here where the lady says, well, some possums are born, they have 6 nipples, and if they have a seventh possum, they eat the 7th possum. It's like, well, why is that more? That's what a lady defending abortion said.
Yeah.
It's okay to murder your children because possums...
Well, if you have 6 children, it's okay, but if you have a 7th...
then you can eat it.
Yeah. Well, we understand her analogy she's making, unfortunately. Wow, okay. and that's the news.
Right. So that's the question in an atheistic worldview that Jeff is trying to answer, and Luke is that they're trying to defend, and Luke, like Jeff and Cy were trying to expose the whole time, is so what?
Mm-hmm.
Who cares if someone eats their baby? Possums eat their babies.
Right.
Other animals eat their babies.
Yeah.
And he actually says in the debate, one species evolves to do things this way, and another species evolves to do something that way. And as Bruce Gleason says, there is no objective morality, and so you have this clip in the debate where during the Q&A session, a lot of people complained about the Q&A session because the questions were kind of crazy.
Yeah.
But you really need to listen to some of the questions that were asked.
There were some really good ones.
Because the responses that Jeff and Luke gave and that the atheists had to answer for.
I wasn't there.
Jeff and Cy gave that the atheists had to and then they
I'll
had
take
to
the
answer
credit,
for.
but...
Yeah. So we're really good. So this is a guy named Anthony English. And remember, atheists don't eat their babies. So what? And Anthony asked this question.
Mr. Gleason, sorry. You want to answer?
Either one's fine.
When I was 5 years old, my father was shot and murdered up in Bakersfield, California. Richard Dawkins said that there is no good, there is no evil. There's only blind, pitiless indifference. As a Christian, I came to a conclusion that it was evil because my father was created in the image of God. The man who killed my father, Ernest Lott, lied about the nature of God by murdering, and God says not to murder. So my question to you is, was the murder of my father back on March 18th, 1996, was that absolutely, objectively, morally good? Absolutely, objectively, morally evil? Or was it just blind, pitiless, indifferent, like Richard Dawkins, the famous atheist, said?
You're quoting Dawkins from an environmental standpoint. He's not talking about society. He's talking about nature is blind. He's not talking about modern society. And both of you guys have taken it a little bit out of context. Yes, it is morally wrong to murder. It's not objectively morally wrong because we...
Well,
there you go.
There you go. Yes, it's morally wrong to murder. It's not objectively morally wrong to murder.
Right.
Right back, work. Like in the same breath.
Yeah, it doesn't work that way.
So going back to eating babies. So we don't eat babies. So what?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
If it's not objectively morally wrong, why?
How can you complain against the lady in China trying to eat her child?
I know.
Well,
I know. And you got to watch the video of that because that's at 2:16 in the debate, 2 hours and 16 minutes in the debate, and Jeff's look on his face right now is the best look of a debate. Here, I'll show it to you. Ready? I got to play it.
We do it in our penal system, in our...
Somehow he managed to break the fourth wall or whatever.
He did. He looked right in my lens.
Right into the camera.
And was like, it's over.
And he's like making this face like a little naughty child.
Look at size grin. Like the grin was... So you got to watch the debate. It's up on YouTube. Please share it. Pass it along. Send it to your atheist friends. Let's get it out there. It's one thing to hear a debate, but it's another thing to watch it, especially how I film it when I'm right up on their faces and when they lose a debate. Like you can see it in their face, even though they never say it. You'll never hear it in the audio, but you'll see their worldview melt off their face like really easily.
Yeah, so. Like at the end of Raiders.
At the
melt off their face.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Worldview. That's their worldview melting off their face. Sorry.
And we saw some chatter on Facebook, I think, or YouTube or something about somebody complaining that Jeff and Cy were saying that the atheists were lying and had a problem with that, right?
Right.
We talk about, and so, but we know from Romans chapter 1 that they are lying about the God that they know, and they're suppressing that truth. And you can read that Romans chapter 1 on the Olive Tree app for your phone.
Oh, there you go. Boom. Nice segue. I was wondering how we were going to get there, and you got there.
That was called professionalism.
Like a pro. I like how you threw the pin just to emphasize the segue.
That was my mic drop.
Olive Tree. Have you used Olive Tree vocab?
Yeah, nice app with lots of stuff.
Yeah, it's a wonderful app. You can do. Yeah,
it's awesome. It's got a lot of stuff.
Yeah, got a lot of stuff on it. Got a lot of stuff, and you can buy more stuff too.
If So What is a philosophically devastating critique of your worldview, it is not a worldview you should hold on to any longer.
Virginia Tech, 2007.
So what?
32 children, kids, students are killed.
So what?
Andrea Yates, 2001, killed her 4 children.
So what?
No, we're not baby eaters.
So what?
That is the new promo we made for the So What shirt for Apologia Radio. And you can get that shirt at missionaware.com.
Yes.
And it says, so what?
So the whole so what, who cares things reminds me of Fred Armisen when he impersonates Jory Bear on The View. You've got to hear it. Can we do this?
Absolutely.
Great way to end the show.
You know what I always say? You know what I say? Who cares? Just go home and have a glass of Pinot Grigio. Go to bed. So what? Beautiful. What? I got on 7 layers of foundation. I still look like a frog in a circus wig. Who cares? You know, I swear to God, the only way I can have a movement is with a dump truck full of benefiber. So what? Who cares?
And here she's at. Usually he's on SNL, but in this clip,
he's actually
on The View with the real host, and it's really funny. And he always does this thing where he like.
I don't get it. So what? Who cares? He looks nothing like me. I don't think so. Nothing. Not his face. Nothing. No. Who cares? And also, the other thing is, so what? Who cares? Excuse me.
And now here comes Joy Bear.
Okay, I can't take any more of her.
Okay.
It was fun until the real Joy got on the show.
So what? Who cares? So what?
You know,
so what?
Who cares? It's really funny. Our favorite host on The View is Simone, who has been quoted as saying, "Yo, dog, get my words mixed up."
My favorite host on The View is Candace Cameron.
I was joking. I was being sarcastic.
Okay, all right.
And the reason I'm saying that is because I saw that there was like 100,000 people that signed a petition to get her kicked off the show.
Yeah, did you see that thing where she was saying she wouldn't hire somebody if they had a, quote, ghetto-sounding name? And she said, if your name is Watermelonina or something like that, I'm not trying to hire you. And I was like, what?
Your name is Raven Simone.
But like, first of all, this is like actual bigotry. First of all,
yeah.
What is this?
Shocker! Actual bigotry on The View.
Second of all,
unbelievable.
Who is Raven Simone hiring to do what?